Welcome to Electric Libertyland, here on the Lions of Liberty podcast, your weekly shot of culture, comedy, and liberty with your host, Brian McWilliams.
Yeah, hello out there. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Electric Libertyland on this fine Wednesday morning, even though I'm not recording it in the morning, as you know by now. Though I have dabbled with the idea, I'll be honest with you, of doing a podcast that's like just 10 minutes that I wake up in the morning and I feel like just rock and dump stick. And it's just called Good Morning, I Hate You. Yeah, because half the time, is it just me? But when I wake up, I don't want cheery dickheads being cheery right in my fat face. I want people that feel like crap. I want them looking crappy. I want them feeling crappy. I want to have somebody to commiserate on how it's a fight to get a day started most of the time. That's what I want, you know? Just somebody that's there just moaning into their coffee hungover. Is that so much to ask? No. So I'm debating doing that. We'll see how it turns out. Anyway, welcome to Electric Libertyland, guys. This is Electric Libertyland episode 23, which means you can go to lionsofliberty.com/ELL23 to find all of the show notes from today's episode. And at the top of the show, I want to remind everybody that you can find something in that show notes. You can find a link. You can click that link and support this podcast because we need it. We got hands. We got greasy little hands we want to put money into so we can help grow the show, do some more advertising, put some more money into special effects maybe. I don't know. But I encourage you to check it out. Click lionsofliberty.com/support. That's a link in the show notes. You can go there directly, of course, by cutting and pasting that or typing it. Use your fingers, your magic fingers. Type it in. Go to that site. You can support us. We're doing some special content we put out there. We recently did an awesome, if I do say so myself, little impromptu show reviewing the Newsmax/Freedom Fest Libertarian Top Influencers list, which we took a lot of umbrage with. Let me cut in a little clip to give you a little taste, a little touch of the tongue here.
Well, let's just wrap it up with this. So who would be, I'll go first. Who would be your number one on this list? And maybe I'm a little biased because I did pick him for my Make Liberty Great Again team, but I would say Larry Sharpe. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see his little Facebook Live he did on healthcare and the problems with really the health service industry overall. He did an amazing job breaking it down. He does such a fantastic job of communicating the ideas of liberty, just like you could, talk to your neighbor about them if you wanted to. I mean, I think it's great they're great videos to share with people. He's not going to embarrass you like Gary Johnson and be awkward and strange. He's a leader. He's a successful businessman, and he's a great public speaker. So I would put Larry Sharpe at number one.
See, I don't think he's got enough influence right now, though. Maybe within the party, but I mean, if we're talking like people that are actually able to influence other people, he's a great orator. He's our Barack Obama, man. That's what Larry Sharpe is.
He is.
He's our Barack.
He's a star.
He is. He's really good. He's a great orator. But I don't know. He doesn't have the influence. So I would say if it was up to me, I would probably, at this point, I might even go Napolitano or I might go with the South Park boys.
Yeah, I don't disagree with either of you, but to be different, I will say a guy who's not a libertarian. I'll say Rand Paul.
Yeah, all right. I can see that too. I mean, look, he has the platform. He's in he's out there. He's still fighting for mostly libertarian causes, but yeah, I agree with that too, man. I thought about doing the same thing, but I figured I'd go with, a little different direction. So good. We all have different options, and none of those options except Rand are in the top 10. Oh, no, Judge Napolitano's in the top 10, too, I guess. So half of them are in the top 10.
You picked like 4 people, Brian. So.
I picked, hey, the South Park guys are 1. We let Rico draft them as 1. They are 1 in my rankings as well. So there you go. There's a little touch of the pride. A touch of pride. Doesn't that sound nice? That's what we should call it. Anyway, so there's a little taste of that breakdown of the list, which, yeah, so many people on it to aggravate you, so many people that you have no idea who they are, and so many people that were far more rightly deserving of being on that list that were either at the very bottom or completely left off, including the Lions of Liberty. Not that we would expect to be on such a list. But anyway, this show's neither here nor there, so I want to get into the meat of this. Now, if you saw the title of the podcast, it is the California is the worst especial. And my God, man, California is difficult. And I'm going to lay out some recent news items that have really gotten under my skin and really pissed me off that took place in this state and are to do with this state. Everything from healthcare to gas taxes that are brand spanking new to Kathy mother effing Griffin. So let's start off with Kathy because that's top of mind. People have been talking about it for a week. And, in truth, it's one of the things that bothers me a little bit about this show in that news breaks and it's a big deal. And by the time it circles around to me talking about it, everybody's already had their take. But this is one thing I really do want to talk about. Number one, because I honestly have never liked Kathy Griffin. I find her to be incredibly unfunny. I find her to be incredibly annoying, and her career is a puzzlement. So when she did this hacky stunt, which is not a joke, she's calling it a joke, and in her apology, I'm not even going to go into what it is. We all know what it was. She took a picture of Trump's head. So in her apology, she's saying, her first apology, the Twitter apology, her statement apology, not the press conference, which we're going to get into. But in her first apology, she's like, you know what? I'm a comedian and I took it too far. I make jokes and I crossed the line and I moved the line and I went too far. Now, number one, this wasn't a joke because jokes are funny. To something to be a joke, it has to have a setup and a premise, and it has to have some sort of clever twist so you don't see it coming. Number one, there's almost no Trump joke you can make that you don't see it coming. Because, my God, people, how many times can we hear the same Trump jokes every goddamn day? This is why I'll make some Trump jokes, but I'll try to avoid them because they're so hacky. They're so obvious. And this statement, this artistic gesture that Kathy Griffin did was just unfunny, desperate plea for attention. And she got the attention, Now, Kathy Griffin, by the way, has been clinging to fame, and she made a career out of being an unfunny comedian. That was her claim to fame. My Life on the D-List was her show. And the reason she was still able to cling to some sort of fame was because she became essentially, she cozied up to the LGBTQ community and became their pet. And that is essentially what she was. She would tour around, she'd do comedy clubs, but primarily her fame, her money, her everything came from cozying up to the gay population and being a big advocate and a big friend to the gay population. And to their credit, look, that population is very loyal to people that back them, especially in the early days before a lot of this movement was forwarded, before gay rights were so prominent, before gay marriage was prominent. If you went out of your way to support them and you were a public figure, they would support you in turn, which is great. Fantastic they would do that. The only downside is that sometimes you support very unfunny people like Kathy Griffin, who got rid of her red hair, and frankly, that was the only thing that was great about her, because we can all get behind redheads. But as a person who, number one, does comedy, and as a person who works as a publicist, this was like a perfect storm of idiocy. Because she handled everything wrong from the start. Because look, you either have, especially as a comedian, you have two options as a comic. You either lay down and you just say, I was wrong, I'm sorry, I did something I thought would be funny and it wasn't. And you let it go, which is what I thought she was going to do until she did her press conference. Or you own the shit out of it. Now, a great example of a comedian doing this, just owning the shit out of it, is Natasha Leggero. She was on NBC's New Year's Eve with Carson Daly a few years ago. And the topic of the SpaghettiOs tweet came up, where SpaghettiOs had tweeted out a shot of their mascot holding an American flag. And it said something like, make sure you celebrate veterans and hashtag Pearl Harbor with us by eating SpaghettiOs, something like that. So they got a lot of flack for it. People saying, oh, corporatism taking advantage of these people and referring to them. I can't believe they do it. Now, Jane Lynch was on the show, and she said, I'm offended because they're referring to SpaghettiOs as pasta. Now, that's fine, funny enough. Now, Ligaro then added, I mean, it sucks the only survivors of Pearl Harbor are being mocked by the only food they can still chew, which is funny. It's a funny joke. It's a joke. It's fairly innocent, but she got a ton of flack for quote-unquote offending veterans. Now, she wrote a official response, and I love this response. So let me just read a quick excerpt. So she says this, I wish I could apologize, but do you really want another insincere apology that you know is just an attempt at damage control and not a real admission of guilt? Let me just try instead, to be honest. I'm not sorry. I don't think the amazing courage of American veterans, and specifically those who survived Pearl Harbor, is in any way diminished by a comedian making a joke about dentures on television. Do we really believe that the people who fought and defended our freedom against Nazis and the Axis powers will find a joke about SpaghettiOs too much to bear? Sorry, I have more respect for veterans than to think their honor can be impinged by a glamorous, charming comedian in a fur hat. So anyway, she goes on and on with a couple more jokes, but long story short, she's not sorry. She made a joke, and her joke was actually funny. And really, I think that's where the line falls. Patrice O'Neill, God rest his hilarious diabetes-riddled soul, but Patrice O'Neill was very libertarian, by the way, so check him out for sure, because he's great. His comedy's brilliant. But he made this statement in regards to, I can't remember what joke exactly it was now. It was, something where the black community was outraged over, he was defending Don Imus. It was about the Don Imus thing where Don Imus called a girl a nappy-headed hoe. And Patrice O'Neill was basically saying, look, that was very funny. Don Imus isn't going out of his way to say, he's not calling him an N-word. He's not doing this. He's just saying, that's a nappy-headed hoe talking about her haircut. And he goes, I laughed. I think it's hilarious. And that's the thing. If something's funny, it gets a pass. I'm sorry. And as comedians, you have to be able to joke about anything. And you can do this. I fully support Kathy Griffin taking the choice and making this decision. That's her choice. That's her free speech. If she thought it was funny and she did it, which I still contend she didn't, she just did it as a publicity stunt. But if she thought it was going to be funny, good, take the risk. But you also bear the consequence of that. So hell, go for it, Kathy. But then don't go and hold a press conference when it bites you in the ass. And especially don't hold a press conference with the daughter of Gloria Allred, Lisa Bloom. I mean, right there, isn't your press conference just completely a joke? I mean, anytime you hear the name Allred, you already know this is a travesty. Like, this is a circus now. Bring out the midgets, bring out the elephant, bring out the bearded woman. It's the only one you could bang after the show. Bring them all out here, trot them around, because this is now a joke. I mean, Gloria Allred, there you go. So that's another thing I hate about California, by the way. The Allreds live here. Lisa Bloom, her lawyer, Kathy Griffin hired this lawyer, Lisa Bloom, to represent her for what, by the way? You're making a statement. What do you need a lawyer for? Because she claimed that Trump was bullying her, that she feels bullied. And she also said that she was bullied by a lot of white males throughout her career. Seriously? I also bet a lot of white males, since you cozied up to the gay community, I bet a lot of white males also helped your career. So don't bring race into this. But anyway, it's just, the whole thing is just ridiculous. And the Allred family, Lisa Bloom, it's more like Lisa Outbreak. They're an STD on America's taint. They're a repulsive, horrible travesty of everything that being a lawyer is supposed to be. It's just, they are the ambulance chases of the celebrity world. Anyway, moving on. So that's a start. Now let's move on to some real things with California is the worst. The first of which, I want to talk about California's gas tax, because they have basically doubled it. It went from it was like 18 cents, and now it's up to 30 cents. And the reason for this, which is why I can't stand when politicians try to justify infrastructure spending bills, Jerry Brown has said that we need to add this massive tax increase, and anybody who opposes it, people like me, people like anybody else that can look at the numbers and look at where the money's going, we are quote unquote freeloaders, which is a favorite term of the progressives. You're a freeloader because you don't want to pay this ridiculous doubling of your gas tax in a state which already has ridiculously high gas prices. So anyway, Governor Brown, he says this tax is going to pay for rebuilding the roads, repaving the roads, making everything all better. The problem is that all completely breaks down when you actually look at where the money's going and how it's spent, because California already makes $1 billion a year of transportation revenue that gets diverted out of all the taxes that are supposed to pay for the road. So never mind, this $1 billion is just a portion. It's a fraction of what actually is made from all these taxes, because it's a massive amount of money. But they take a full $1 billion of that and they take it out and they put it into the general fund, which is what always happens with these joke tax increases. They never go to what they're intended. So they take it out and you say, okay, well, where's the money being spent? $100 million a year was spent trying to increase the number of trips by bicycle or foot through a program called Active Transportation, California's Active Transportation Program. And by the way, since it was created in 2013, 4 years now, this is according to Reason that looked up the stats, the bike numbers have increased from 1% to 1.1%. And I can tell you, I have some direct experience with this because Venice Boulevard, which you might know from the famous Venice Beach, Venice Boulevard is 2 blocks away from me. And I recently was blown away. My goddamn brain fell out of the back of my skull because I'm driving down Venice Boulevard and I go, what the fuck am I looking at? Because over the period of a month, I haven't been down that road in a little while, but in the period of a month, they completely removed 2 lanes of traffic. From a 6-lane, it was 3 lanes on each side. They took out a full lane of traffic on a very well-traveled road, by the way. It is the main thoroughfare from the freeway to the beach every summer. So let me try to paint a picture for you. And I was trying to find a graphic of this thing because I didn't have a chance to take a picture of the other day. But let me try to paint the picture of the unbelievably crazy setup they've got here. So imagine, if you will, a street scene. And it's a beautiful sunny day in California. Birds are chirping, whatnot. So you got a curb, right? Most streets have curbs. This street has a curb. And in a usual city, you've got parked cars along the curb to keep them out of traffic, right? Provides a little wall for pedestrians. So that's your usual street scene. You got your curb, you got a cars lane for parking, and then you have a bike lane that's about 4 feet wide on the other side of the parked cars. That's the way it was. It was not broke. I don't know why they thought they had to fix it. But now what they have is a curb, then you have a 4 to 5 foot bike lane, then you have a 6 foot quote unquote loading zone, which is like striped off. You can't park there. You can't stop there. That's got stanchions in it. Then you've got parking on the other side of the loading zone. So try to picture that in your head. And now think about how hard it is for people if they're trying to pull into traffic from the street. And this is why there's been so many more accidents. And there's not only bike accidents, but more car accidents because people can't see anything. So you're pulling out from a side street. You're looking to your left. First thing you've got is bikers. So you've got bikers that are whizzing down the road coming at you. Then you got to creep up to the point where you get through the loading zone to the point where the cars are at. So while you're pulling up, you got to look for pedestrians, you got to look for bikers. Now you're trying to pull into traffic. Meanwhile, there is a wall of solid cars that's 12 feet out from where you're trying to pull out that's blocking your field of vision completely. Not only that, but unless you want to pull out all the way into traffic immediately, your car is going to be blocking the bike lane. So you have to look for bikers as well as cars coming at the same time. And it's not like they're in close proximity like they would usually be. No, you've got to pay attention to the cars that are 10 feet in front of the bikers. And God knows bikers hate to have a car in the way and they get very angry should you have the gall to block the bike lane, which is now moronically placed 10 feet behind the area you have to get into traffic. That is something only a jerk off in government could come up with. It's so stupid. It's so counterintuitive to a general flow of how things should go. And it really is like, it's like, well, how are we going to make this the safest thing we could possibly make it? More like, how can you make it the least efficient, most confusing, and probably more dangerous system that's ever been put in place while inconveniencing thousands, not even thousands, hundreds of thousands of people every year. Not even year, every month. That street, as soon as summertime happens, it is going to be backed up to the point where it will be completely unusable. And every other street in these neighborhoods, which one of the reasons I live on the west side by the beach in this goddamn city that I don't even enjoy being in, is because it's not that trafficky. And now this one piece of garbage, Mike Bonin, has made a change which is going to impact my life and make it miserable. So thanks for that. Okay, tangent over on that side of things. Moving on. What else is the money used for? Oh, $330 million to the Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Program, which, by the way, funds California's high-speed rail system, which is running 50% over budget and 7 years behind schedule. So that's money that's being well spent. Now, Elon Musk is doing his own rail system. So go Elon, private industry man. And then $300 million is also slated to pay for streetcars and light rail systems, which they put one in Santa Monica, famous Santa Monica, which also ruined traffic there. It's a theme. It destroys traffic. They make it easier for the 12 people that ride the train there. And of course, there's some other money for food and agriculture, Department of Parks and Recreation, etc. And this is on top of the fact that California already has the highest sales tax in the nation. And that's after it went down 0.25%. So it's now at 7.25 instead of 7.50, which is what it was at. And of course, we also have the highest income tax for a state at 13%. So can somebody, for the love of God, explain to me how I'm a freeloader? I mean, God forbid you want to hang on to any of your money in California. God, secede, California, secede. I'll just leave. It'll be great. It can fall into the ocean. All right, next thing I want to talk about, California has a single-payer healthcare plan, which is in the Senate. And that, of course, is despite the fact that there is zero plan for how it's going to be paid for. It already advanced through the House. Think about that. Think about that. The people that have been elected in the California House have passed this bill through to the Senate, despite the fact it has zero plan, zero fallback, zero infrastructure in place to pay for the plan in any way. And by the way, what's the plan going to cost per the assessment? $400 billion, which happens to be double California's annual state budget. Double a state budget that is based upon the already highest national or highest state taxes in the nation and the highest sales tax in the nation, and this massive gas tax that they put on everybody, and all of these other crazy things that they tax people and charge people for in this state. And it's still not even halfway to paying for this universal California healthcare plan. I mean, if you can't manage the budget as is, with the biggest economy in the country in California, and you also have, by the way, the biggest immigrant population rolling in here, the legal immigrants, and people that are not paying back into the system, but yet, so they're not even getting taxes taken out other than sales tax. But how exactly can you pass that through to the Senate? How can you even consider something like this? But yet California's already looking into it. And I already know a lot of people who live here that think it's just a fantastic idea. People with no grasp of economics. Okay, next one I want to talk about, charter schools. California does have a charter system, and you know what? It's actually not that bad compared to some places. However, they have a bill that is currently resting. It's still there. It's not dead. But thank God it's taken a few shots to the jaw. But they have a bill that was put forth by or I'd say it wasn't put forth by him, but it was very strongly supported by former LAUSD school board president Steve Zimmer, who, by the way, walked around my neighborhood with senatorial pinhead, possibly dumbest person in government, Maxine Waters. They did not knock on my door, despite the fact that I wanted them to so badly. But he and Maxine walked around to support this bill. And this bill was called Senate Bill 808. And what it would be, this is the description by an analysis of the bill. The bill requires all charter school petitions to be approved by the governing board of the school district in which the charter school is located. It prohibits a charter school from locating outside its authorizer's boundaries and limits the current charter appeal process to claims of procedural violations. Do you understand what that means? That means that if you want to create a charter school, the school district, the public school district that is run by a union-controlled school board that doesn't like charters is going to just tell you to go and stick it right up your ass. And then if you want to try to fight it, you can't do anything about it either because it's already going. Basically, it takes out all the appeals process and makes it so it's only a claim of a procedural violation. It essentially is saying, okay, we're going to give all the power to the unions, all the power to the school district as is, because we're a bunch of hacks. Like this guy, Steve Zimmer, was a union hack, even though I will give him credit. He allowed charter schools to continue in some places, which is fine. But in the meantime, on the other hand, he's trying to put a bill forth that would completely undermine everything they're trying to do and essentially make it so that the school districts would be able to put the kibosh on any charter schools. And also there's provisions in this same bill which make it so that if there's any sort of misappropriation of funds or misuse of funds, which of course happens every day in the public school system constantly, or if there's any sort of inappropriate actions in that school, as of course there are every day in the public school system, that the charters can lose their ability to function as a school. They can close them immediately. They can be decommissioned. And also, here's the nice cherry on top too. The school boards can also reject a charter school if it's a quote unquote financial burden. Not to itself, mind you. Not to taxpayers, but a financial burden to the school district. So they're saying if a school wants to open up, that's a charter school, the school district could go, well, no, because we think that that's going to, take students away from us. And of course, if you know things about the school district, you know that a lot of them get money based upon the amount of students that are enrolled. So what public school is ever going to not consider a charter school a financial burden? The whole thing is idiotic. But here's the good news, people. The good news is Steve Zimmer got his ass handed to him in the most recent election, which was in March. And I couldn't be happier. Now, here's what's crazy, though. The cost of the advertising spent on a LAUSD board president election was $15 million. $15 million. And what's crazy is charter supporters spent $9.7 million. And that includes money from the Netflix co-founder, Reed Hastings, who actually is a Democrat. He invested $7 million. And another top donor was LA former mayor Richard Riordan, who is a Republican. He put $2 million in. But so you got heavy spending because people are so fed up with the public school system. They'd want their kids to have school choice. They want other people's kids to have school choice. So they're investing heavy into this. And when I ate up with a spoon, like I was a little kid on the sidewalk in the summertime, just eating up my mint chocolate chippies, was the fact that Steve Zimmer had the gall to go and whine and cry about the fact that he was outspent. That's what he blamed on. He said, I was outspent. Meanwhile, this is a guy that's had union money backing him up for years. Hilarious. Hilarious, Steve. Enjoy your time unemployed. I hope you don't get another job anytime soon. God, pisses me off. Oh, and by the way, just a reminder about the school benefits, the teacher union benefits that they all have. They all tie into the pensions and the unfunded liability that California has. And of course, Steve Zimmer was a huge proponent of unions, huge proponent of all of their rights, all their bargaining. So just as an FYI, California's current unfunded liabilities and public debt for retirements is $366 billion, which is a lot of money, but still not even as much money as you would need to cover the universal health care plan. Unbelievable. And that, by the way, that data is from 2014. So that's not even the most recent data we've got. That's probably, I'd say, at least 25, 45 billion higher, if not more by now. Madness. Okay, one more California story, and then I'm going to finish up with a little talk about the FAA and the air traffic control privatization that Trump wants to get into. But before we get to that, here's a quick word from our sponsors.
Hey guys, this is Roger Paxton, and if you're fed up with the government running every single aspect of your life, but you're not listening to the Lava Flow podcast yet, then what's wrong with you? Check us out at thelavaflow.com, or just go back to sucking up to the government. The Lava Flow podcast, striking the root every single episode.
This is Chris Spangle, and I am the host of We Are Libertarians, which you can find in iTunes, Google Play, or at wearelibertarians.com. We are a podcast that brings you all of the irreverence that modern politics deserves by examining current events from a libertarian perspective. So please, check us out at wearelibertarians.com.
Hey everyone, the Johnny Rocket Launchpad is Liberty. Each week we strive to bring you the best guests in talk radio. The Johnny Rocket Launchpad delivers weekly interviews of noteworthy politicians, experts, and activists. The Johnny Rocket Launchpad is bringing the party to the Libertarian Party and launching ideas in your direction. Check us out at johnnyrocketlaunchpad.com, and you can hear me, Kurt Nelson, and the beautiful Heather Nixon talk about the ideas of liberty, rock and roll.
All right, we're back in. And I already want to remind you guys, after that little commercial break, to please follow us on Twitter at Lions of Liberty. Follow me, Brian McWilliams, just at Brian McWilliams, Brian with an I. Not like you filthy, dirt-eating Y people. But follow me on Twitter for all sorts of quips and some Liberty stuff. Also, make sure to find us on the Facebook forum. We've got, just type in Lions of Liberty in that forum. We will add you most likely. And, of course, you can like our page. I also want to encourage you to write an iTunes review. It really helps. Get those boost up for traffic for us. Help us grow this show. All right, moving on. One more California thing, guys. So I want to talk about the prison system in California. I'm not going to go off on too much of a tangent about the overall drug war and the mandatory occupancy rates in which California and many other prisons and states were locked into contracts where you had to have a minimum occupancy rate of like 98%, which again, this is all this crony capitalism, all this legislation fed into each other in a circle of bullshit wherein prisons had to keep their prisoner rates up because otherwise states would have to pay the prisons to cover the cost of occupancy. It was just insanity, and no contract in the world should ever read the way that the contracts are set up between private prisons and the state. But I digress. The point I'm trying to get to is that a recent study revealed that California prisoners cost $76,000 per year per prisoner, which, as this article points out, is more than the cost of going to Harvard for a year. And I don't even need to tell you that's more than many, many people in this state make. I would venture to say probably more than 2/3 of the people in the state make. Because while I live in Los Angeles and the mean income is going to be higher, people, you don't really realize how big California is. Like, it is sprawling. And places that are going outside like Modesto, like Bakersfield, they don't have those kind of high paying rates. So these people are probably, these prisoners probably cost double what people are making. Why are the costs so high, you might ask? Well, simple reasons. Same thing why everything in California is so high. Pensions and salaries and unions. That's why. Because the unions are negotiating on behalf of everybody together, and the state's too cowardly to stand up to them. So they keep giving them higher wages. They keep giving them benefits. They keep giving them benefits to the medical staff that work there. And on top of all this, it would not be so bad if they didn't also keep hiring people. And again, this has to be union arm twisting because there's no reason for hiring random prison guards when the last time we had a prison break in California I can remember is never since I've been here. There's not people streaming out over the walls. There's nobody Shawshank Redemptioning up into my backyard here. I live right next to a stream. No one's popping out covered in shit. There's no Andy Dufresne's knocking on my door with a book tied to his leg. So again, this is an incredibly damning stat too. So in 1994, they had one employee for every 4 inmates. Seems pretty reasonable, right? Now they have one employee for every 2 inmates. What happened? What happened in the past 10 years, 15 years? Did these inmates suddenly grow razor claws like Wolverine? Like, why do you suddenly need twice as much staff to handle the same number of inmates? And by the way, not even the same number, less inmates. Because Californians have made it so that now marijuana is decriminalized, essentially decriminalized. You can still get it, certain things for it, but it's now a misdemeanor. You can now grow pot in your own backyard. You're not going to prison unless you're carrying around pounds and pounds of the stuff. And even then, we also voted to release about 12,000 prisoners that were in for violent or nonviolent crimes, whether those are marijuana related, drug related, or just nonviolent in general. People that got this 3 strikes rule and they were thrown in jail. So those people are coming out. So you have reducing numbers. You have criminals that are not going in anywhere near as often as they used to. And yet you have costs that have gone up. Since 2015, they went up $10,000. How? Is their cost of living increase just so much vastly better than the rest of ours? Like, I got to get in the union. I got to become a prison guard. This is insanity. So I don't know. What's the solution to that? Obviously, the people that are in the state that are running this are just complete crony capitalists. They're tools of the union. They're not going to stand up and fight back against it. And I don't understand why you can't just en masse say, all right, you're out. We're going to hire other people to move in. We're going to hire some private security contractors. We're going to bring them in. They're going to take over and they're going to run the facility. What's the problem? They'd cost far less. They'd probably do a far more efficient job than these union goobers that are sitting around picking their asses because they've got one guard for every 2 inmates that is sitting around all day just watching those 2 guys on TV. Because I'm pretty sure I can find a guy on the street right now that could watch 3 guys, 4, maybe even 5 guys if they were in the same room together. And you don't need to be in a union for that. All right, moving on to the final thing. Let's talk the air traffic control plan and Trump's idea to privatize air traffic control so that it is, number one, far more easy to modernize, and number 2, is able to basically keep pace with the rest of the world. I haven't seen many people really oppose this. I mean, of course, you've got liberals that are just up in arms about anything Trump wants to do. So they're going to say, well, we can't. Oh, he wants to privatize everything. Like, I've already seen some people saying that this is going to basically give all the power to the airlines and give all the power to people, to global, rich globalists who just want to fly their private airlines around, which is just idiotic. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But really, the more empirical articles I've read that are looking at this fairly, it's a good thing. The United States is basically using an antiquated system where we're using a radar-based system where people are still passing papers back and forth in the flight control tower, rather than using these advanced systems, which, by the way, exist and which have been trying to be put into use for about 15 years now. But because funding isn't really a reliable thing for the FAA. I guess it goes up and down politically because you've got all these antiquated people that don't really want it in there. It's held up. Delta, oddly enough, is trying to hold it up. But still, you have 60 other countries, 60, that have already privatized their air traffic control systems. They are running smooth as silk. Think about how many delays you have at the airport, how many times shit's all backed up on the tarmac. This system is going to make that far more faster, far more easier, far more streamlined, and they call it next gen. It's going to have all these technological improvements. And you know what? Once you take that first step, you're going to be able to more easily upgrade as you go. Anybody who's had an old operating system on the computer, you know what happens if you sit with that same operating system because you're too lazy or too scared to update it because you don't want to lose your Minecraft? By the time you actually need to update it to use something that is essential to what you want to do, you're completely fucked. Because your system's too old to upgrade. So you're just starting from scratch. So the U.S. has to do this. It's not an option. We need to do this. And look, this is like a gateway drug for privatization. All of these people that are losing their minds, that are running around calling the sky is falling, this is a great example of people. Nobody remembers a time when this was not a public institution, that it wasn't run by the government. This is a perfect way to say, look, there's a better way. Privatization is the better way. Just wait till all these people are experiencing a faster air travel. And then from there, maybe we can get the TSA privatized, which is already something that some smaller airports have done. You start with the air traffic controllers, then you move it along to the TSA, and then you move it along to other things. All we need is a little crack. So we should be loudly supporting the privatization of this and just really applauding anybody that's getting behind it. It's going to be great. Everybody's going to get represented. There's a board that's involved with air traffic controllers, with the unions, and with the airlines, and with everybody else. And it's going to be a nonprofit. So all the whining wilburers can't even say that it's going to be a for-profit and, oh, God, we have to worry about the evils of capitalism because it's a nonprofit entity. Nothing there that's not to love. So hooray for privatization. That's it for this Electric Libertyland. I think it was more just me venting than anything else because I am so aggravated with California. And again, people are going to say, well, why don't you move? It's hard, man. It's hard to move. Once you've been somewhere for a long time, you got your roots here. My wife's got family here. But I will tell you this. If California does pass universal health care and my tax rate skyrockets, and also, by the way, I didn't even get into the housing prices in California, which, by the way, are an all-time high. You can't. It's like a one-bedroom, two-bedroom, one-bathroom house is going for about $1.6 million in a really shitty neighborhood. It's absurd. But let me just say, if they do pass that healthcare law, I think that might be the final straw for me. So, hey, if you want me to live next to you in your neighborhood, root for that to happen. Otherwise, I guess I'm stuck here for now. So, from me, Brian McWilliams, from the Lions of Liberty, from Electric Libertyland, always stay plugged in to Liberty.